Is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro a worthwhile buy in 2022?
In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of my Blackmagic rig, as well as a price breakdown and the return I've received so far on it to give you an idea of whether or not this is going to be a good investment for your business.
You probably already have an idea of some of the specs for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro if you are watching this. But in case you don't, it does shoot 6K RAW. The big selling feature for me was the internal ND filters and the articulating screen on the back of it.
There are already a ton of videos going to the specs of this camera, so I'm not going to go too into detail here. Overall, this camera cost me $34.95 Canadian plus tax. The cage I picked up is the Magic Rig cage. When I bought it, it was the only product that had stock available in Canada, but overall I find it has a really good construction, and it came with a top handle and NATO rail.
I haven't had any complaints with the cage so far, and I consider that to be like pretty necessary purchase with the camera.
The cage in total cost me $110 plus tax Canadian. I also picked up some rails and a base plate. These screw directly onto the camera and allow me to attach different accessories. I primarily use it for the VMount batteries and battery plate.
Although sometimes it can be a pain to take it on and off. If I were to buy this again, I think that I would probably have a quick release so that it can be a bit quicker to set up.
The base plate came to $81 and the rails came to $21 Canadian. Next, we have the VMount and battery system.
The battery system within the camera is pretty poor, and you're definitely going to want to find some other solution.
I find that the VMount system works really well. It's super reliable, and I can get almost a full day of straight filming off of a battery and a half.
It's been great to buy these batteries and know that I'm going to also be able to use them for future cameras.
The VMount plate cost me $50, and each battery costs around $170. Now for the mic, I use a Deity D3 Pro.
I like that it can go on the camera and plug into the 3.5mm mic input, but I can also have the XLR adapter and run it through an XLR cable when I'm trying to boom across the room. The one thing with using this mic and this camera is that it doesn't work with the 3.5mm mic jack that comes with it, and you're gonna have to buy a separate 3.5mm cable to work.
This mic cost me $270 plus tax. The lens that I use is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This lens is super sharp, and I use it for almost all of my projects.
I do love this lens, but sometimes it's nice to have additional stabilization if you're doing some run and gun or something outdoors. If I were to buy just a single lens for this camera, I would probably look at getting a 24-70 that has internal stabilization like the Sigma or the Tamron. This
lens costs around $800. I also use the Small Rig Mini Matte Box.
The matte box I have is a new purchase. Right now it's a cosmetic feature, but in the future I plan to buy some filters to go in there so I'm not having to buy new ones for different lenses.
The matte box cost me $127 plus tax. I do have a monitor that I don't often use. I don't really consider this purchase to be worth it because the LCD screen on the back of the camera is so good. That monitor cost me around $200 Canadian plus tax. Lastly, we have the SSD holder and SSDs. I like to use the Samsung 500GB solid-state drives. Versus the alternative of buying a CFast card, it really brings down the cost of building out your Blackmagic kit, and I do consider them to be necessary. I have had some issues with the cables coming unplugged, but for the most part, this hasn't really been the case. The SSD holder cost me around $38, while each SSD costs $120. Now for those of you who've been trying to keep track, that brings my total to around $5,480 plus tax Canadian. So for each job, I allocate about $250 to cover the cost of my camera kit. In 2021, I had 17 jobs. So far in 2022, I've had 17 jobs with it, and I expect at least 6 more, which brings the total for 2022 to 23 jobs. Now, if we're looking at the amount that it has earned me for each of those jobs, in 2021, it means I have earned about $4,250, which almost covered that whole cost of the camera in that year. This year, I'm looking at about $5,750, and so between the 2 years, I will have earned about $10,000 from my $5,480
$480 investment.
That works out to be an 82% return over a year and a half of having this camera.
In a couple years, when I'm done using this camera, I will resell it, and I'm hoping to get about $3,000 if I sell that in maybe 2 years. I'm not sure how accurate that's going to be, but I think that seems like a reasonable estimate right now. So overall, I've earned a pretty high return on this investment for this camera, and if you are in a similar situation where you have the work coming in and you can charge a similar rate, then it probably will be worth it for you too. I mean, based on the cost of the camera, the quality that you're getting out of it, and the return that you can probably, even if you're renting it out for $100 a job, using it for 2 or 3 years, you'll definitely recoup your investment. And even though it's 2022, it's only been a year since this camera's come out, and I expect it to be relevant for quite a while. So I would definitely recommend buying this camera if you're working for yourself or if you have the jobs coming in for it. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe. It would really mean a lot. If you have any questions about how I use this rig, please leave a comment below. And if not, I'll see you next time.